In this video, I'm doing a detailed review of the new Lexie Lumen online hearing aids from HearX. Coming up. Hi guys, Cliff Olson, Doctor of Audiology and founder of Applied Hearing Solutions in Phoenix, Arizona. And on this channel, I cover a bunch of hearing-related information to help make you a better informed consumer. So if you're into that, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to click the bell to receive a notification every time I post a new video. This video was made possible by the Best Practice Pro Network. Best Practice Pro members have been carefully vetted and are committed to following best practices to ensure you hear your absolute best with your hearing aids. If you want to maximize your performance with whatever devices you use to treat your hearing loss, then make sure you contact your local Best Practice Pro today. In the third quarter of 2020, the HearX Group released the Lexie Lumen hearing aid, which is their first direct-to-consumer hearing aid in the United States. The HearX Group, which is based in South Africa, got its start by developing different types of hearing screeners, but now they are dipping their toes into the online hearing aid market. You may have heard the recent news that the HearX Group received a significant investment from Bose Ventures in a recent $8.3 million funding round, presumably to jumpstart their Lexie Lumen hearing aid venture. In general, the main focus of the Lexie Lumen hearing aid is to increase accessibility of hearing treatment by making it more convenient and having a lower cost. That being said, let me go ahead and jump right into the review of the Lexie Lumen hearing aid, and let's start with the purchasing process. Buying Lexie Lumen hearing aids is super easy and almost too easy. You basically just go to lexiehearing.com and click on the Shop Now button. This takes you to a page where you can either select the pay per month subscription option, which typically costs $49 a month for 24 months with a $50 activation fee, which comes out to a total of $1,226, or you can just make a one-off purchase of a pair for $799, which is a $427 savings compared to the subscription price. Now you do get a 2-year warranty with the 2-year subscription option and only a 1-year warranty if you purchase the one-off option, but you can extend that to a second year for just $40. Lexie also has a remote microphone option, but I could not figure out how to actually purchase it through the online portal, but that was a relatively minor inconvenience. The only real problem I had with the online ordering system, other than not being able to purchase that remote microphone, was that after filling out my information, you can see a section at the bottom that mentions the FDA waiver that is highlighted in blue, indicating that it's a link. When I click on the link, it just takes me back to the sales page. So basically, I could not find the FDA waiver, and I could not find the terms and conditions. From a legal aspect in the United States, it's probably not that big of a deal because the FDA doesn't really enforce any laws regarding online hearing aids anyway. But legalities aside, it seems like the company has fixed this issue as of the recording of this review, and I highly recommend that you take the time to read the terms and conditions and the waiver instead of just clicking continue by default. Otherwise, ordering was really simple. Just make sure that you find a discount code to enter in because there's usually a discount code floating around out there. I did get the devices in the mail pretty quick, and I didn't even have to pay for expedited shipping. I think I had them in about a week or so. All right, so I've pretty much laid out everything that you have inside of the box here. So of course you've got the hearing aids here in the middle. You have a little quick start guide down here, and there's a lot of reminders to actually download the Lexie app, which is very important if you want to make adjustments to your own devices. So that's a little quick start guide. Of course, you have the full user's manual. There's some good information in that manual. I do recommend reading the information that's in there. You have a little carrying case here. You have some desiccant pods to remove moisture from your hearing devices. You have a cleaning tool. It has a brush. It has a cleaning filament that you can run through the tubes. You have extra domes here so you can find the right dome size that fits your ear the best and most comfortably. And then you also have some different wire lengths, different tube lengths for the hearing devices themselves, and then you can actually use this measuring tool to identify what the correct length is on your ears, but it's just as simple to go ahead and remove these tubes off of the devices and just put on the different ones until you find one that feels the most comfortable. The nice thing about the app is it kind of walks you through that process as well. And then you also, of course, get batteries, some starter batteries for yourself, very common size 312 batteries that you can find pretty much anywhere. With the Lexie hearing aid, down here at the bottom, this is where your battery door is. So that's where you will actually put in a size 312 battery. You have the volume adjustment right here. So there's a button to click volume up, button to click volume down. You have a program changing button right here, which allows you to shift through a variety of different programs, including background noise programs, a telecoil program, a remote microphone program, so on and so forth. You also have a dual microphone system here. So underneath this tube right there, that's your front microphone. And then if you turn it over here, that is your rear microphone. That's what helps the hearing aid perform directionality to help control where the microphones are picking up sound from, particularly when there's background noise. All right, really quick here, I just want to give you a size comparison between one of the major brands of hearing aids right here. This is very similar in the sense that it uses a size 312 battery, so the same as the Lexie hearing aid, and it also has a telecoil in it, just like the Lexie hearing aid does. Of course, this one here is a receiver in canal type hearing aid. This one here is a slim tube type hearing aid, and they can actually remove the receiver from the body of the hearing aid, which makes the hearing aid smaller, because this little red tip here, that houses the receiver that puts sound into your ear, rather than sound having to be generated inside the hearing aid and sent down the thin tube. But let me hold these in a different position, again, just to give you more of a size comparison between the two there. All right, let me go ahead and put these in my ears so you can see what they look like. Now, they do have a variety of different colors. I just kind of went with like the metallic black looking color. But in general, I mean, they fit pretty typical to any slim tube style hearing aid. The thing that bothers me about the slim tube style is that they just, I don't know, they feel a little bit more clunky from a physical perspective. And these retention filaments, like, you can always tell when someone has a slim tube hearing aid because they inevitably have one of these little strings hanging outside of their ear because they're affixed to the tube in a way that they just don't kind of like wrap around and stay in place. But in general, that's kind of what these look like. Let me turn sideways here for you. And then, of course, from behind there, they're definitely not, quote unquote, nearly invisible, but they're definitely suitable. Okay, so looks are one thing, but what about actual performance of these devices? Right off the bat, you're encouraged to download the Lexie Lumen app, which works for Apple or Android devices. The app is pretty straightforward. It asks you a variety of questions to rule out serious medical conditions related to your ears, and then provides a tutorial for how to select the most appropriate tube, how to get them in your ears, how to change the domes, followed by connecting your hearing aids to your phone. Once connected, it takes you through an in situ hearing test where you hear the beeps through the hearing aids and indicate when you hear them inside of the app. The app lets you test your hearing at 500, 1000, 2000, and 4000 hertz. The results page gives you a breakdown of how well you heard low, mid, and high-pitched sounds. All right, we're off to a good start, so let's go ahead and get into the app and show you some of the things that you can do with it. And the first thing that I want to cover is the Lexie Rewards program. So the Lexie Rewards program lets you earn points for things like wear time and for actually participating in the activities that they send you through the app. When you get enough points, you can actually redeem those points inside of their store for like a remote microphone or a hearing aid dryer and things like that. The whole intent here is to make sure that you're actually getting the most out of your devices and that you're wearing them consistently. The second thing you can do inside of the app is gain access to a hearing specialist inside of the video call support tab. The first time I tried to connect was unsuccessful, but when I eventually got through a few days later, I'm not sure if the person I spoke to was an audiologist or not, but I found her to be very pleasant and relatively helpful during the video call. I did have the specialist send me some settings to increase high-frequency amplification, which you can access through the Device Settings tab in the app. You don't get to hear these changes in real time when you're on that video support call because you have to disconnect with them, then you have to upload those settings changes from your phone into the devices. So if you want additional changes, you have to keep recalling them to do the support again. I will show you how well these settings changes as well as other settings changes worked when I get to the objective verification measures inside of this review. Third, this app allows you to do different things like changing different programs, which actually includes a telecoil program and a remote microphone program, and it also lets you adjust volume control. There are a couple of other things that you can see inside of the app, like if your hearing aids are actually connected to the app. They also have a help tab down there at the bottom, so if you don't want to call video support or you can't get through to video support, you can just type a question in there and hopefully get an answer. All that being said, I want to go ahead and jump into the objective testing of these devices. Now, Lexie doesn't technically say that they fit your hearing loss prescription perfectly. They say that they fit your hearing profile perfectly. But they are alluding to the fact that these hearing aids can be programmed perfectly. Fortunately, the quality of hearing aid programming is something that we can actually verify using real ear measurement. Now, if you do not know what real ear measurement is, then I highly recommend that you check out my video that I will link in the description. But it is basically a way for us to objectively measure whether or not a hearing aid is meeting an individual's hearing loss prescription. Let me go ahead and explain how I did this. I first obtained a professional audiogram from my assistant, who also took the Lexie hearing test through the app. She has a mild level sensorineural hearing loss, which you can see here, and should easily be within the capabilities of these hearing aids. I then placed a microphone tube inside of her ears to measure if the amplification from the Lexie hearing aid test could match her NAL/NL2 prescriptive targets based on her hearing loss. Now, just a heads up, this section is going to get pretty detailed because I'm going to be doing a bunch of objective measurements on different settings with these hearing aids, but I will be doing a recap at the end if you're not really into all this technical data. This hashmark pink curve represents the prescriptive targets for average level speech. The solid pink curve indicates my assistant's natural ear canal resonance, which is basically just an amplification effect that's created by the pinna as well as the ear canal, without any hearing aids inside of her ear. In order to optimally amplify for her level of hearing loss, the solid line needs to overlap with the hashmark line as closely as possible. As you can see, she needs a good amount of amplification to get her up to prescriptive targets to overcome her hearing loss. Next, we placed the hearing aids inside of her ears and ran a curve to measure how much the Lexie Lumen hearing aids amplified sound at the startup volume level of 5, which will be represented by a purple target and purple solid curve. Remember, the goal of these real ear verification measures is to match the hashmark curve with the solid curve by increasing amplification levels at each frequency range. At this point, there is only a very small amount of amplification coming from the Lexie Lumen hearing aids, which does not come close to matching the prescriptive hashmark target curve. So I decided to maximize the volume at a level of 10 and rerun the curve in red to see if that measured any better. As you can see, this did a much better job of getting closer to her prescriptive targets in the right ear, which is on the left-hand side of your screen, but not a very good job in her left ear that is on the right-hand side of your screen. I went ahead and tested the volume level at 0, and effectively this mutes the hearing aids because this measurement in turquoise almost perfectly matches her resonance curve that's in pink. Before I test the different programs, I wanted to test compression settings of these devices. Don't worry, I have a video talking about compression also linked in the description of this video if you want to check it out for this to make more sense. Basically, testing compression is where I can see if the amplification levels for loud sounds are being limited to prevent discomfort, and if soft sounds are being amplified enough to make them audible. The loud compression targets, which are represented by the red hashmark curve, indicated that even at volume 10, loud sounds are not loud enough. Next, I went ahead and tested soft level compression with the turquoise curves. As you can see, soft level compression tested the worst out of these measures, meaning that soft level sounds, such as soft level speech, would not likely be audible enough to overcome this individual's hearing loss difficulties, even with the volume of the hearing aids maxed out at 10. Okay, moving on from the everyday program, I wanted to see how the indoor noise program amplified sound differently. For these curves, I ran one measurement from the front in red and one measurement from the rear in turquoise to test the directional microphone capabilities of these devices. Just comparing the everyday program and the indoor noise program, I could not tell a measurable difference between the two. When measuring sound coming from behind, we would expect to see the turquoise curve be lower than the red curve, indicating that sound is being reduced when coming from behind you. As you can see, there are some areas where the sound is reduced, but in general, this is not as much of a reduction as someone would want in a noisy situation. I also wanted to do a quick comparison of a basic level name brand hearing aid that was fully customized to Bree's mild level hearing loss, so you can see just how close we were able to match her prescriptive targets, which is indicated by the green curve. Next, I wanted to check the noise reduction settings of the Lexie Lumen hearing aids to see how much background noise they were capable of reducing. In this measurement, the farther the red line drops down from the purple line, the more noise reduction that is occurring. As you can see, the right hearing aid lowered the noise by 4 decibels and the left ear by 2 decibels. In my opinion, based on these objective measures, the hearing profile settings of the Lexie Lumen hearing aids were not sufficient enough to get Bree to the point where she was being amplified well for her mild hearing loss. Now, I actually did a remote session with the hearing specialist at Lexie, and I asked them to increase the high frequency amplification of these devices, which they were more than happy to do. But then when I went in and retested things, you can see that this only resulted in a slight increase between 2,000 and 3,000 hertz in the left ear and 2,000 to 4,000 hertz in the right ear, which was a negligible improvement over the original settings created by the app itself. In the process of my review, Lexie actually reached out to me and they actually agreed to send me the audiogram that they obtained from the Lexie Lumen app. And this is where I believe that the majority of the issues were. Take a look at the thresholds obtained in the app versus the thresholds obtained in a professional audiogram. The differences are pretty big, and according to the Lexie test, Bree doesn't even have a hearing loss in her left ear, despite that being her worst hearing ear. Now, Lexie does have internally generated validation data that shows that the app hearing test is as reliable and can be used to accurately determine pure tone audiometry thresholds, but unless the devices that I was testing were faulty, this is not what I experienced for my review. Fortunately, I was able to send them Bree's professional audiogram so they could send me additional changes based on that. And of course, I went ahead and re-verified using real ear measurement. The turquoise curve that you see here were the optimal settings based on the Lexie app hearing test, and the red curve was the optimal settings based on the professional audiogram. Even though we are still missing the prescriptive targets throughout a good portion of the frequency range, we are much closer than we were before. Okay, so here's a quick recap. Based on the objective measurements that I got from real ear verification, it appears as though the Lexie Lumen hearing aids struggle to meet an NAL-NL2 mild hearing loss prescription. This appears to be primarily due to inaccurate in situ air conduction thresholds that were obtained inside of the Lexie app. In general, there were only small differences between the different programs that were inside of the app, and there was really not that much of a directional effect or noise reduction effect with these hearing aids either. These measures did improve significantly when I sent them a professional audiogram for them to send me over more customized settings that were appropriate for Bree's hearing loss levels. The problem is you would never actually know if you were meeting your prescriptive targets or not unless you had real ear measurement performed on these devices. And Lexie does not accept professional audiograms. You have to take it through the app. The only way I was able to get them to do this for me is because I was doing a review on their devices. By comparison, a very basic level hearing aid from a different major manufacturer was able to hit NAL-NL2 prescriptive targets for a mild level hearing loss almost precisely. This would ultimately maximize the amount of audibility for the entire range of hearing loss for this individual. So here are my thoughts on the Lexie Lumen hearing aids. First, I really like what they're trying to do from an accessibility standpoint. I mean, if you were to come into my clinic, there is no way that you would be able to even get anything for this low of a price point. Not to mention, if you live prohibitively far away from a hearing clinic, then you don't even have the opportunity to go in and receive in-office care. The Bluetooth connectivity with the app is actually really stable, and I'm really impressed by that because there can be a lot of Bluetooth issues with virtually any hearing aids that are out there. But I would hesitate to call these actually Bluetooth hearing aids. I feel like that's a little misleading because you cannot actually stream any kind of audio from a smart device into the hearing aids. Perhaps the best thing about these devices, other than the increased accessibility, is this Lexie Rewards program. I really like the idea that you can have some ongoing support both from an email perspective and through the app. Since you don't get any in-office care with these devices from a preventative maintenance standpoint or encouragement and education standpoint, it's really nice that they're trying to stay engaged with you even though this is done 100% virtually. There is a 45-day no questions asked return for refund policy, but you have to make sure that you follow the steps exactly, otherwise they reserve the right not to give you a refund. I do think that this return period is relatively on the short side. I think it should be more like 90 days because when they're having to send you different settings adjustments while you're not sitting right there in front of them, this can take quite some time. The Lexie Lumen return for refund rate is at about 15 to 17 17%, which is definitely better than the 30+% that you see from other online hearing aid manufacturers. This is likely due to their higher level of involvement with you through the virtual support as well as the Lexie Rewards program. However, this naturally leads me to question Lexie's use of best practice care and person-centered care, which I find to be a little bit misleading. Best practices include a long list of procedures that must be completed in order to optimize performance with hearing aids. This includes a comprehensive hearing evaluation, which includes not only air conduction, but bone conduction and speech testing as well. It also includes test box verification measures, as well as real ear verification measures. And as of right now, none of these best practice procedures can be performed by an online hearing aid company. I will go ahead and link my best practices video in the description of this video, along with the best practice checklist so you can see what comprehensive best practices are. Overall, Lexie is exactly where I would expect them to be in the overall grand scheme of things when it comes to direct-to-consumer online hearing aid sales with the technology that's available to us today. Ultimately, I think that if they want their business model to work, they're going to have to find a hearing aid manufacturer that is significantly better than Intracon, and this may be helped along by the investment that they got from Bose Ventures. I do believe that Lexie and their employees have their hearts in the right place. I really truly believe that they are trying to help individuals hear better through improved accessibility. But solving this direct-to-consumer online hearing aid sales thing is a very tough nut to crack, especially considering all the limitations that come along with not being able to verify and validate everything that's being done with a hearing aid fitting. That being said, if you feel like you have hearing loss but you do not have access to a hearing clinic, or you just cannot afford best practice in-office care, then you should definitely give Lexie Lumen hearing aids a try. That's it for this video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below. If you like the video, please share it. If you want to see other videos just like this one, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Also, feel free to check out my website, drcliffaud.com.